What is horror, and why do we as moviegoers love it so much? Stephen King classifies horror into three types. The gross out. The sight of a severed head tumbling down a flight of stairs. It's when the lights go out and something green and slimy splatters against your arm. The horror. The unnatural spiders the size of bears. The dead waking up and walking around. It's when the lights go out and something with claws grabs you by the arm. And last, and the worst one, terror. When you come home and notice everything you own has been taken away and replaced by an exact substitute. It's when the lights go out and you feel something behind you. You hear it. You feel its breath against your ear. But when you turn around, there's nothing. But as a genre classification, what exactly is horror? We have multiple subgenres like body horror, slasher, psychological horror, folk horror, art horror, cosmic horror, gore or shock horror, and the list goes on and on. The genre of horror is so wide because horror aims to scare, shock, and repulse audiences by creating feelings of fear, dread, and anxiety through frightening themes, imagery, or situations. As to why audiences love horror, there could be several reasons. For me personally, it's the adrenaline rush, the tense feeling you get in your gut that churns and builds unease throughout a film's runtime. When you watch a really good horror, it's like a treat to get to the end of the film. All my life I have grown up a horror nerd. My dad was a big Halloween fan, so since a young age, I've been watching slashers, and as I got older, I began to dive into other horror films. So today, with October right around the corner, I figured why not rank my top 10 favorite horror films. As always with my ranking videos, this is just my list and there is no right or wrong list. If I name a horror movie that you happen to hate, don't leave a hate comment. Rather, tell me down in the comments below what your favorite horror film is or your top 3 favorite horror films are. Before I hop into my top 10 list, I wanted to name a few honorable mentions, in no specific order, that I wanted to include on my list, but they just didn't quite make the cut. Eyes Without a Face. Eyes Without a Face is a French horror film based on a novel by the same name. It revolves around a plastic surgeon who is determined to perform a face transplant on his daughter, who was disfigured in a car crash. This film is one of the few films to truly make me squirm and look away. And a lot of the practical effects still hold up 65 years later. This film is a little bit of a slow burn than others on this list, so it might not be as exciting to some audiences, but it is absolutely one I recommend people watch at least once in their life. The Fog. The Fog is not only a great horror, but it is one of Carpenter's best soundtracks. It tells the story of a strange glowing fog that sweeps over a small coastal town in northern California. Fun soundtrack, great performances, fun kills. Is a little slow, but it is still a great film that I do heavily recommend, and it's a very short watch. I think off the top of my head it's like 80 something minutes long. So, but yeah, a lot of fun. Child's Play 2. Oddly, I have always clicked with Child's Play 2 a lot more than any of the others in this series, and I don't know exactly why that is. It's not the most bonkers film in the series, or has the best kills, but it is just a comfort film to me. The film is set 2 years after the original, continuing Chucky's pursuit of Andy Barkley, who is now in foster care. It's a lot of fun and has a kick-ass poster. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Really, any of these except for the remake has a solid argument on making a favorite for the list of mine. Freddy haunted my dreams as a child for the longest time, and I always had the hardest time watching his films. Not because they were boring, but because it was just so chilling, the concept, and Freddy looked so horrific. But yeah, I love me some Freddy Krueger. The Lighthouse. Eggers' best film. The Lighthouse stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson as turmoiled 19th century lighthouse keepers stranded at a remote New England outpost by a violent storm. This film is amazing And it is, was, and forever will be a sin that Dafoe did not get an Oscar nomination for this film. A little backstory: I remember being a sophomore in high school and driving 2 hours with my brother to watch this in a small, sketchy movie theater somewhere in Minnesota. I can't even remember what town it was in. And both he and I walked out stunned. And I remember we both barely talked on the ride home, just processing, the movie. It was amazing. Definitely recommend. Brooks 2. No, this is not a bias. Brooks 2 is a great horror comedy about how the power of friendship will always beat unforeseen circumstances, and no, that's not the actual story. It's about two detectives who are brought in to investigate a string of murders attached to a pig-like creature. But as they dig deeper and deeper into the case, disturbing figures from their past come to haunt them. Yes, my friends and I made this, and yes, you absolutely should still watch Brooks 2. And with the honorable mentions out of the way, let's begin our list. Coming in at number 10, the film that kicked off the German Expressionist movement in cinema, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari tells the story of a hypnotist who uses a body of like a deceased man to commit murders. The film features a dark, twisted visual style with sharp, pointed forms. I think the design of the villain holds up to this day as horrifying, and this is arguably still the best set design in a horror film that I've ever seen. I know many of the great silent films feel a bit like homework, but this is completely the opposite. For 77 minutes, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari will have you locked in and begging for more. Truly a bone-chilling film that I love, and it inspired Tim Burton's art style. So if you're a Tim Burton fan, I also heavily recommend this. And loving Tim Burton myself, knowing that, this adds to my love of the film. At number 9, we have Hereditary. I'm not too sure what I can add to this that hasn't already been said. Considered to be one of the greatest modern horrors, Hereditary tells the story of a grieving family tormented by sinister occurrences after the death of their secretive grandmother. Probably one of the most disturbing and anxiety-inducing third acts I've seen in a film. Hereditary is a wild ride from start to finish, and a fun little story. My hometown rarely gets anything art house or really anything that's not very mainstream. We really only get big blockbusters. But when this released, my hometown got this, and I remember sneaking into the theater to watch this with my friends. Back then and now, the film still haunts me. And it is one I love showing to people for their first times, just to watch their reactions to the events that occur in this film, because there are a few moments that will make your skin crawl. Coming in at the number 8 spot, we have my favorite giallo, which I was lucky enough to see in a theater around this time last year, and that is Tenebrae. When American author Peter Neal visits Rome to promote his latest murder mystery novel, he becomes tangled up in the search for a serial killer who is inspired by his novels. This film is a wild ride from start to finish, and features one of my favorite kills in all of horror, when our killer chops the hand off a victim and it paints a beautiful white wall red. Dario Argento is a great director, and all of his films have fun soundtracks. However, after watching this one, you'll find yourself listening to the theme all the time. It is just that catchy. Now, this comes as a bias, as I have both a Robert Eggers Nosferatu and a Doug Jones Nosferatu poster behind me. But the original 1922 silent film Nosferatu will always be my favorite. I don't know what it is about this version's Count Orlok, but to me, the shot of him standing in the doorway, or the shadow walking up the stairs, or rising up from the casket, or being on the top of the ship, all of those are just so damn scary. The story is basically a vampire that preys on the wife of his estate agent and brings the plague to their town. This film is light years less horny than the Robert Eggers Nosferatu, but to me, way better. Also, side note, Doug Jones is the best Count Orlok, and not just because I got to meet him and get his autograph. Definitely no bias there. Coming in at the number 6 spot, we have David Cronenberg's wild science fiction body horror, Videodrome. Videodrome follows the CEO of a TV station who stumbles upon a broadcast signal of snuff films. Layers of deception and mind control conspiracy unfold as he attempts to uncover the signal's source, complicated by increasingly intense hallucinations that cause him to lose his grip on reality. I'm not too sure what attracts me to this film, as I'm not the biggest body horror fan, but if anything, it has to be the batshit practical effects because, oh my god, the Stumpussy is just so hard to look at. Long live the new flesh. Breaking our top 5, we have Sam Raimi's wickedly fun time, Evil Dead 2. I mentioned back in my What I Watched in August video that I really loved this film. And I go so far as to say it is in my top 5 of horrors. So this film takes place after the events of the first, but this time Ash finds an audio tape of recitations from the Book of Ancient Texts, and when the recording is played, it unleashes demons that possess and torment him. It is action-packed fun that, if you have never watched, you need to. I'm not the biggest fan of the first or third film in this series, but man, Evil Dead 2 is something truly special. Coming in just outside of our top 3 at the number 4 spot, we have Satoshi Kon's psychological horror, Perfect Blue. This film follows a member of a Japanese music group who retires from music to pursue an acting career. As she becomes a victim of stalking by her obsessive fan, gruesome murders take place and she begins to lose her grip on reality. The movie is nuts and will hurt your head as you try to understand the movie you're watching. I watched this back in January of this year, and I remember being absolutely petrified for multiple days. The stalking is just so creepy. The scene where our main lady is being chased by her doppelganger is also terrifying. Everything about this is just so unnerving, and the design and look of the stalker just gives me chills down my spine to this day. But on a side note, the first time I watched this, I thought I clicked on the wrong movie because the opening just didn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel like it belonged to the same movie. But yeah, check this film out, especially if you like Black Swan, as this is the film that inspired Black Swan. And if you think Black Swan is great, man, Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue will blow your mind away. Starting our top 3, we have a film that I argued with myself for a while over and needed help from my friend Parker on whether or not this was a horror film. And in the end, we concluded that this film is indeed a horror, and that film is Steven Spielberg's hit film Jaws. Now, before you potentially get angry, let me explain our thought process. There are a lot of horror themes here. The unknown of what is in the water. The USS Indianapolis is absolutely bone-chilling. And even the corruption outside of the water with city officials is quite horrifying. Jaws blends adventure and horror well together, and this film practically made the subgenre of shark horror that was so popular in the 2000s and 2010s. And in personal experiences, this film scarred me, I should say. This film has scarred me of large bodies of water and swimming in pools for my life. I bet if you line 10 people up, at least one will say Jaws scarred them. So for those reasons, that is why I think Jaws is a horror, and it is not only one of the best horror films, it is one of the best films, period. Coming in our number 2 spot is the gory, goopy, albeit epic John Carpenter's The Thing. This is one of the most epic and hard to watch horrors of all time. It is super hard to watch because the practical effects in this look better than those in movies that are coming out today. A group of American scientists in Antarctica encounter the eponymous Thing, an extraterrestrial life form that assimilates, then imitates other organisms. The group is overcome by paranoia and conflict as they learn that they can no longer trust each other and that any of them could be the Thing. If for some reason you have not seen this film, first of all, what are you doing? Quit watching this and go watch The Thing. But secondly, you are missing out on one of horror's best feats. Before I reveal my favorite horror, I have a few tasks for you. Number 1, if you're watching and you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Number 2, go to the comments below and tell me either your favorite horror film or your top 3 horror films. I love to chat and talk with my followers and learn more about them. So, as a lover of the great genre of horror, I'd love to hear what your favorites are. And coming in at the number 1 spot is the original 1978 Halloween. This is not just my favorite horror film, but one of my favorite films, period. This film, of course, follows mental patient Michael Myers, who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister one Halloween night during his childhood. He escapes 15 years later and returns to Haddonfield, where he stalks teenage babysitter Laurie Strode and her friends while his psychiatrist Dr. Loomis pursues him. This film is wickedly horrific, yet is a fun time that no matter how many times I watch it, it still encapsulates me. This film notably kicked off the slasher subgenre. It is not the first slasher, but it certainly is the one that raised the genre to fame. There is so much that could be broken down with this, but I might wait to do that for a special date next month. And that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you for joining me for another video. I hope you all had fun hearing my top 10 horror films. And remember, this is just my list and there is no right list. But let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite horror film or what are your top 3 favorite horror films? As always, follow my Letterboxd, follow my Instagram, and subscribe if you haven't already. I need all the engagement I can get. Thank you, and I cannot wait to see you again.